I left Christianity and fundamentalist churches, I noticed how Christianity seems to be split between people who follow the traditions of Santa Claus and people who don't. If you're in a more liberal, what do they call it, progressive, you're going to see more Santa Claus. If you get into the fundamentalist, Calvinistic, extreme versions of Christianity, you're going to get what I call a version or a mainstream worldview when it comes to Santa Claus within the Christian community. If you've ever Googled putting Christ in Christmas or adding more Jesus, if possible, to Christmas, this is what I'm talking about. Christians in the fundamentalist circles believe that if you are focused on anything that isn't Jesus and God during any holiday, from Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, anything that is a celebratory, either a federal, state holiday, religious, whatever, any observance of something has to be all about Jesus. Now, for those listening who still want to make it about Jesus, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't control the holiday. Christmas existed and Easter existed well before Christ ever appeared, if you believe he appeared. Christmas had already been around at least 1,000 years before Christ ever was born. The reason why we celebrate Christmas in December, specifically on the 25th, is because of the Roman god Mithra, whose birthday, ding, 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 December 25th. It's a Roman thing. 200 years ago, we didn't even celebrate a lot of the traditions we call Christmas. Like Christmas trees, eggnog, Yule logs. That's very Germanic, very Prussian, German, Middle Eastern, European traditions. And without, and I read this somewhere, without Prince Albert becoming Queen Victoria's consort in 1840, most of the traditions we consider British or English would not have gone to Britain, let alone the Americans. It just wouldn't. All of these Germanic, Eastern European traditions that made it its way to England, most of it is because of Prince Albert. He made Christmas trees British. Without him, we would have very little of what we consider Christmas. And what we consider Christmas has only been around since the Victorian period. You go back before 1810, you will see a very different Christmas. I mean, for thousands of years, Christmas was very similar to what we would call a Roman orgy. Christmas was actually illegal from 1659 to 1681, especially in Puritan areas like New England, Massachusetts, Britain. Britain outlawed Christmas during Oliver Cromwell's period of power. Christmas has not always been legal or anything like we consider it to be today. And yes, we are talking about Christmas in January. In my family, we started Christmas in September because my mother would decorate and start singing carols in September. I kid you not. Which is kind of normal because in Alaska, it starts to snow sometimes the end of September, early October. We don't get the big snowfalls until late October, but it still gets very chilly. So it's not normal to start in September, but for my mom, she just did. Most of the Christmas traditions, like Santa Claus, Christmas trees, eggnog, Yule logs, what's that other one? show. Those are not British traditions. Those are Eastern Europe in the area we now call Germany. And it's only because of a German prince from Hanover, the Hanoverian area, is the only reason we have it. Santa is not a British thing. It's a Turkish thing. Santa came from Turkey. So after a certain time period when a lot of stuff from Turkey came in and out, which is why the Black Death happened, of course, because of rats and all that, what do they call it? Trade. Trade is the reason why we had the Black Death, because people kept going to different places. That's how most of these traditions got into mainstream in other countries. But the white-bearded Santa Claus did not even exist until very recently. I mean, it wasn't even until the 1900s that Coca-Cola came up with the idea of a white-bearded man. And you go back 200 years, Christmas was extremely different. You read A Christmas Carol. Most of the traditions during the Victorian era were like anything we have today. You go back to the 1600s, the same time period as when the Puritans in Jamestown was established. They had a Christmas that was very much like a dance hall or an orgy, which is why it was illegal in the mid-1600s in specific areas of extreme Puritanism. And you go back into the Middle Ages, a lot of places didn't celebrate Christmas. And any country or area that was extremely Christian, they didn't even celebrate birthdays, because it was considered superstition and pagan to celebrate your own birthday, which is ironic now that they use terms like your Christian name, your birthday, because Christianity did not observe birthdays, and for many decades they haven't observed Christmas either. Santa Claus is a Turkish tradition, and some crazy Christian out there decided that you could change Satan and Santa Claus as the same word, just a few letters changed. And it's like, I mean, you could do that with a lot of words, but who cares? Just because somebody has the same letters as Satan in it does not mean anything. I mean, how stupid and ignorant does someone have to be to think that, the letters within the name Satan is also the same as Santa? It's stupid. It doesn't mean anything. Santa Claus is it wasn't Catholic, but it was the German form of it's very similar to German Orthodox and Christian Catholicism is very much what St. Nicholas was into. Similar to St. Patrick. He wasn't what we would call Christian, he was Catholic, or whatever the Irish version of Catholic was back then. But a lot of Christianity has pagan traditions, holidays, speech, but we still do it. And whatever the Christians have been doing, the pagans have been doing for a millennia before. Most of the biggest civilizations' celebrations were called something before they combined the old religions with the new religions. And Christianity is a very young religion. You go back to Buddhism and Hinduism. Those existed well before Christianity. Buddhism is considered the oldest religion. It predates Abraham and Judaism. How dumb does someone have to be to actually believe that because Satan and Santa have the same letters. Different order, but same letters, that there's something evil. There's nothing wrong with Santa Claus, just like there's nothing wrong with the Easter Bunny. It's a tradition left over from a group of people that probably don't exist anymore. And I'm sure if you research the Easter Bunny, it has its own roots. Probably very anti-Christian, because everything was anti-Christian before Christianity came along. I mean, hanging garland and trimming trees and having turkeys and ham was actually traditions by pagan religions. The whole issue with Santa Claus is Christians don't like anything that predates, takes the place of, or muddies the waters of absolute adherence. It's the same reason why Catholics don't like people talking about contraception. At least the diehard traditional, never wavering Catholics. Anything that rocks what they deem natural is a threat. Santa is a threat to Christianity only because the Christians make him a threat. They see Santa as a lie, as a counterfeit Jesus. That's why Christians don't like Santa Claus. It's pretty simple. Because Santa and Jesus have a lot in common. They're both men who bring good news during a certain time of the year. They bring gifts, they make children happy, and they teach people to treat each other with equality, respect, and goodwill. I mean, Jesus and Santa Claus are basically the same. The only difference is they were both religious, but one was a Jew and the other was a white German person. And interesting, this made me laugh. If you research St. Nicholas's biography that Santa Claus or Father Christmas, depending on what country you're from, is based on, you will see that it was during a time period of political persecution, similar to how Christians persecute people who deny that Christians are being persecuted. There is no group of people on this planet more privileged than white Christians. If you know of any, put them in the comments and I'll make a video about it. Nobody in America or any predominant Christian country, like, what's that country called? Ireland. Like 98% of all the schools are Catholic. Christians and Catholics white Christians or Catholics are the most privileged groups on the planet. Because governments and countries were built on their religions. So any group of people that built their country and are still in power in that group are going to be extremely privileged. Christians believe they're privileged. The Christian right, they believe they should force their opinions on everyone else. Some people don't adhere to that, which is great. But the majority of Christianity out there that calls themselves traditional, conservative, they want to force their beliefs on everyone through the law, through social convention. And if anyone dares say, your law reminds me of Sharia law a little bit too much, they would be offended. If any group of people, secular or religious, tried to push their opinions into law on everyone, the Christians would lose their mind. You saw how they lost their mind with the New York mayor who happens to be Muslim. Because during the generation I grew up in, Muslims were equated to terrorists. Of course, now if you disagree with Trump, you're a terrorist. That doesn't make sense at all, but I'm sure he would make it sensical somehow. I don't care what you believe, or believe nothing. Just don't force your opinions on everyone else. Don't say stupid things like Satan is Santa Claus, and stop trying to make Christmas more Christian, or more Jesus, or more Christ-like. It's annoying. And if you have a problem with someone saying Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or Xmas, get a life. Because back in the 2000s and 2010s, Christians would lose their mind if you said Xmas. However, educated people who know their shit knows that the letter X is a Greek letter for Christ. So their base Xmas is the same thing as Christmas. One's Greek, one's, I'm not, probably British or English. It's stupid. Christians will fight over a word that if they knew meant the same thing, just in a different language, they'd probably still fight about it. It's the same thing as Happy Holidays. The idea comes from the concept of Christianity. And yet Christians will throw a fit about it. As long as you celebrate something at some time, and it doesn't even have to be that holiday, I don't care. I'm sure Christians would find a problem with Hanukkah. Believe what you want. Celebrate or not celebrate. Whatever makes you, your family, and your children comfortable. Just don't expect anyone else to show up to your party or agree with you. And if you have to make a post about it, don't talk down to people. I don't celebrate any holidays because I'm too busy and I don't care. But I don't tell people, you shouldn't be celebrating this holiday because it has pagan roots. Well, Christianity, back in the first 3 centuries of AD, was considered an end-of-the-world cult. And they're only big because Emperor Constantine of the Romans decided it would be politically advantageous to use that religion as a springboard, similar to how George Bush used God during the Iraqi War. You would get more land, more prestige, and more adulation invoking a popular god's name, instead of just saying, I want that, and I'm going to take it. Christians don't get to lecture people on morality, and they do not get to tell people the right way to celebrate Christmas. I don't care how you celebrate it or not celebrate it. Just stop telling people how to celebrate. Even in January, I see posts of people who think they're morally superior because they don't have a Christmas tree. Ask their kids in 20 years, was it a great holiday? And if they say no, then I don't care what their parents post. As long as you celebrate and have fun at different times of the year that make you and your family happy, who cares? And if in your family a white man with a beard and a jolly sounding voice that brings presents makes you happy, fine. If another family finds happiness in Jesus, fine. But stop posting on YouTube about how the world's going to hell because people still observe a Germanic mythology instead of a Christian mythology. They're all pagan. Christianity is a combination of all kinds of pagan beliefs. Santa is no more Satan than any other image in a holiday. And real Christmas, like the Christmas that was celebrated the longest, resembles Mardi Gras or St. Patrick's Day. If there's not drinking, drugs, and sex, that's not historically the most prominent form of Christmas. And even Easter. Easter was a holiday that I would say all countries celebrate some type of spring rebirth. I know the indigenous people of America sure do. Whether or not your God raised from the dead or you see an Easter bunny, who cares? There's not a right way to celebrate anything. As long as you don't do any harm, you care about Mother Earth, and every day of your life you make it better for everyone you know, who cares how you celebrate a holiday? Religious people, at least the ones I've unfortunately had to go to church with, their priorities are all messed up. Instead of focusing on how is the right way to celebrate a holiday, Maybe you should show some love, toleration, acceptance, and kindness instead. If you really want to know how to make a better world, give your money to people who need help instead of buying a new Walkman or a new television. But if you choose to spend it on your family, fine. But you're not morally superior for buying somebody a new Roku television. And just because you have a manger in your house doesn't make you a decent human being. If that were true, some of my neighbors would have been saints, and they're not. Most of them got evicted for illegal activity. But at the end of the day, Santa is a wonderful option for a certain holiday. You don't have to. You can do it differently. You can do none of it. You can celebrate Hanukkah instead, or whatever end of the year festivities you want. Just stop guilting and shaming people or saying it's sinful to celebrate a holiday any other way than your narrow-minded, unpopular, sad way of celebrating a holiday.